Hello, and welcome to another response video. Alex Jones is going to be going through a defamation lawsuit, so he's going to be a very busy boy. So I'm just going to let him do his thing without any responses to him. And instead, I'll respond to someone who isn't a nutty conspiracy theorist and has arguments against transhumanism that don't stem from a severe misunderstanding of the topic at hand. Since this video is rather short, I'm going to let it play in its entirety and respond at the end rather than responding intermediately. So let's begin.
Hey guys, so this is just a quick little video about transhumanism and why I'm personally not a fan of the ideology. You see, to me, transhumanism is like egoism. It's not an ideology on its own. It's more of a sub-ideology, something that you believe along with what you believe politically and economically. But, unlike egoism, I'm personally not a fan of transhumanism. And now, if you're wondering why, it boils down to one basic thing. I believe if transhumanism was ever achieved, it would erase all purpose mankind had left. Now, I'm kind of an unapologetic utopianist myself, but imagine if we achieved a transhumanist utopia. It would literally be people walking around as gods, with nothing to do, bored out of their minds, with no purpose or objective. They just wander, waiting for a death that can never come to the immortal. Not only that, but I think that transhumanism as an ideology, not as an idea, is kind of stupid because I don't think it's really possible. Think about all the resources it would take to transform everyone on the planet into cyborgs. We don't even have that many resources to do that. The only way it could work is if we killed off, like, I don't know, 5 billion people, and then the rest could be cyborg, transhumanist, utopian, robot people. And if you're a transhumanist, don't just dislike this video. Comment below. Tell me why you support transhumanism. Debunk my video if you want. I don't care. I'd love to hear your point of view. But personally, I'm just not a fan.
And there we have it. So, from what I can see, he has two main points and then sub-points stemming from that. The two main points is that with an infinite or indefinite lifespan, life doesn't really have much of a purpose anymore, and the sub-point to that is that people are going to be walking around always bored and unable to die. The second main point is that there's not enough resources to even make a transhumanist future, and a sub-point for that is that if any attempts were made, it would require killing off a large portion of the population. For the first point, I don't really see how that would be the case. Let's say that I decide that my purpose in life is to make art for people to enjoy. How would being like a overly augmented, like just completely upgraded person to the level once reserved for the gods and having an infinite amount of time ruin that purpose? And at what point with having an infinite amount of time or such incredible power does life stop having a purpose and start being just completely purposeless? Because I could still say, even after all that I want to make art for my purpose in life. Like, I don't believe there's any inherent divine destiny for people. The closest thing to a purpose in life is reproduction, but with 8 billion people in the planet, it's like Yeah, we've already solved that. And for the sub-point that people would just walk around bored all the time, people today with limited lifespans get bored. People who have died when they were 10 have been bored at times. So does that mean a 10-year-old's life, once it ended, was more purposeful than a 20-year-old or 50-year-old's life because they had less of a chance to get bored? Like, yes, people are going to get bored occasionally, but people are also able to stop getting bored when something new to do presents itself. And it's a lot better for people to have an infinite lifespan and have all the time in the world to do all the things they want to do in life than to have such a short amount of time and risk not being able to do everything they want to do. Then not only would they be bored in life, but it would also be unfulfilled. Meanwhile, with an infinite amount of lifespan, I think most transhumanists agree that if you want to, you should be allowed to say, alright, I'm done, I've lived enough, it's time to tap out, and then kill yourself. For the second point, that there's not enough resources, I'm interested in knowing where he got that from, where he heard it, or read about it, or watched it from, because that's the first time that's ever crossed this debate as far as I'm aware, and I don't think that's the case. In the absolute worst case scenario, there'll be plenty of resources in space. And getting those resources will be a lot easier in a transhumanist future where augmented people might be far less susceptible to issues stemming from long-term space travel than the average biological unaugmented human. But I don't even think we need to start mining asteroids or the moon in order to get these resources. I contend that there's enough resources on Earth to augment the population, and I would like to see if you have any actual data to the contrary. Another thing is that not all of the population is going to be augmented immediately. While it should be strived for that anyone who would want to get these upgrades could have easy access to them, there's no fast travel for the super rich or super influential. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people are going to be wary about it initially. It might stem from religious reasons, like the Amish, or it might just stem from a general distrust of new technology, or a general wariness of having metal inserted into your body. But only a small amount of the population is going to be augmented initially, and with that, as the technology progresses, they might be able to figure out far less resource intensive ways of being able to augment everyone. They might find ways to build this stuff that requires less resources. They might find ways to utilize more common resources in places of rarer ones. And there's also the fact that a transhumanist future might end up saving a lot of resources. A hypothetical scenario: some augments ensure you don't need to eat or drink. in order to gain all the nutrients you need. You can just take these protein or nutrient pills, or you get your energy from somewhere else, and let's say your skin absorbs all the moisture it needs from the atmosphere. That means that we will no longer have any issues with the resources needed to sustain the farming industry, the livestock industry. We won't be constantly tapping into scarce pockets of fresh water. Those are going to be some major war zones for resources in the future, especially fresh water. So being able to sidestep that entirely with humans no longer need water would be an incredible benefit. There's also recycling, like maybe at some point in the future we'll be smart enough to figure out even better methods to do so. Therefore, all this metal junk we have just piled up in landfills and in the oceans can be utilized for an actual purpose rather than just shitting up the planet. I don't agree that there's not enough resources to do this as it is, and therefore I don't agree that we'll need to start killing off billions of people in order to create a transhumanist future. That seems like just the absolute worst case scenario in which there has been not even no evolution in society, but a severe regression in society and its ethics. The fact of the matter is, though, there's not enough resources to sustain our current way of life. The planet isn't able to replenish resources in time that we are consuming at this rate. So one could argue, and people have argued, that the solution then is to pull the plug on modern society and dial everything back a bit. Now, I'm sure you wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but that solution stems from the same observation you've made, only rather than something that can happen in the future, it's happening now. And while you might argue that you shouldn't then keep moving forward and using up more resources for more new projects, I say that when there's a problem, you should not stop and go back. Especially problems that are as major as a planet is running out of natural resources. Because if you go back, you're just going to constantly face the problems that were plaguing us in the past. And if you go back to avoid those problems, you're going to face the problems that plagued us then. They'll go all the way back until there's no more civilization at all, in any form. And that's just going to lead to a whole mess of problems. Yes, going forward with transhumanism, with various alternative energy sources, with all these different solutions to current problems, will have problems themselves. But we will be a lot better off facing those problems and finding solutions for them than constantly being beaten down by the issues we face now. I think David Deutsch, in his book The Beginning of Infinity, said it best when he said that problems are inevitable, but they're also soluble. And the issue of resources is one that can be solved. So those are my thoughts on the matter. I hope you enjoyed the video. I gave you something to think about and otherwise entertained you. Take care.